Good evening, everyone. Let's get started. Welcome to the CIBSE New South Wales Young Engineers Network webinar, A Day in the Life of a Building Services Engineer. Tonight, we will have 4 speakers who will be sharing their experiences as building services engineers and other relevant information about the industry. Just a few housekeeping. This session will be recorded, and everyone is welcome to ask questions anytime during the presentation using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Questions will be asked to the speakers after all presentations have concluded. Just to start with acknowledgement of country, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which we stand today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and also acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognize their continuing connection to land, water, and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. We've got a few slides. The Engineering Building Winter Edition 2020 is now out. This is the official journal supplement for the Australia and New Zealand region. This one is a bumper edition with feature articles on adapting the education sector, superlabs, and the renewable energy update. You can download it at cibse.org.au. The 2020 Vision for a 2030 Reality program brings experts from both sides of the Tasman to share exemplary case studies of regenerative and net zero building practices, as well as new information on future policy changes that building owners and services engineers need to understand to minimize future risk to assets, both existing and new. In addition to 10 presentations, this event will offer delegates the opportunity to participate in deep dive thought leadership focus sessions, learn from additional international case studies and other net zero CPD webinars, speed network in small breakout groups, learn about the products and services that can help you tackle the climate emergency and help you deliver net zero buildings. You can register at cibse.org.au, and for a limited time ticket, it will cost $99. CIBSE will also be offering a limited number of free tickets to CIBSE student members, so sign up for free at cibse.org/student. The upcoming technical CPD events will continue to run in webinar format to protect the health and safety of our members in the industry in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. You can register to attend any of our sessions at cibse.org. A reminder that the ARBS exhibitions has announced ARBS 2020 has been rescheduled to February 15 to 17, 2021 at the Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre. After hearing our panels, After hearing our panel of building services engineers, if you would like to learn more about a career in building services engineering, download the career guide at cibse.org/ANZ career guide. If you are inspired by today's presentation, why not start your first step and sign up as a student member? Student membership is free to full-time students and heavily discounted for part-time students. As a CIBSE student member, you will have access to the following resources: a monthly subscription to the CIBSE Journal, the leading monthly magazine for building services engineers worldwide. On top of the CIBSE Journal, the ANZ region produces a quarterly digital publication, Engineering Buildings Journal, which includes contributions from committee members, CIBSE members, and industry experts from across the region. You will also get members-only access to the Knowledge Portal, which has hundreds of titles, including all the latest up-to-date CIBSE guides and standards. As a member, you can download this for free, which can really save you a lot of money, seeing each guide cost around $200. There are also opportunities to shine with regional and international awards and bursaries for students and young engineers. You can also access membership to CIBSE's 5 societies and 19 special interest groups. Now, we will hear from our speakers. Our first speaker for tonight is Kelly Pan, a mechanical engineer from LCI Consultants.
Thanks, Alyssa. I'm just going to take over the screen share. Is that working?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of your Thursday's evening to join us on what I think is our first seminar. Sure, there's plenty of other things that you guys can be doing tonight. I know if it were me, I'd be watching MasterChef reruns because I haven't caught up to date yet. But you guys chose to be here with us, so I hope we can make your time worth it. I'm going to start off with introducing who I am, how I got here, and then go into a bit about what is being a building services engineer or being a consultant, and then sort of walk you through what a typical day as a mechanical engineer looks like. So first off, I graduated from UNSW not too long ago, I think. 2016 isn't that long, with a mechanical engineering degree. During that time, I spent a lot of my hours not really focusing on the educational aspect of uni, which I mean is good, but I also dabbled in a lot of student-led societies. So one of the ones that I was really actively involved in before was the UNSW Women in Engineering Society. And through that, I sort of built up a lot of soft skills, which I found very translatable into the industry. During my uni degree, I also had the opportunity to do several internship placements from like very varying industries. The first company I worked for was Favel Favco. It was a crane manufacturing company. So there was a lot of very technical mechanical engineering work. We had civil engineers and structural engineers who did a lot of the calculations with us. And then after that, I sort of ended up in Sunbeam Australia. You guys probably all know Sunbeam as a company that produces white goods like kitchen appliances and the like. During that time, I worked as a product design engineer, which is something a lot of mechanical and mechatronics engineers go into. So I spent about a year and a half working there and then doing my thesis with Sunbeam as well. And definitely learned very different skill sets to what I had at the crane manufacturing company. After that, I worked in at Schneider Electric in the building management systems team. So it's relevant to the building services industry, but it was very specific around controls, control methodology, learning what equipment within a building helps it run, and understanding how to control those things to make it energy efficient, energy efficient and energy effective, I guess you would say. So those are the things that I did during my uni degree. And then after working at Schneider for a few years post-graduation, I ended up at LCI Consultants, which is the current company that I'm with. And this is where I really started taking on being a building services engineer and in doing things that, you know, a mechanical designer or a mechanical consultant does. So that's a bit about me, a bit about my background. Now I'm going to go into sort of where we sit in the holistic picture of things. So this is like a very simple structure. It's by no means the only structure that we have in construction. And it's definitely not the only structure we have in the structure changes constantly, even on the same projects. So at the very top of most things is the client, the person who pays the bills, the person who wants something done. So the client in the construction industry it could be a developer, it could be a builder come developer, it could be the government, it could be companies that represent the government to undertake certain jobs. You know, it can be data center owners, it could be private people as well. So obviously housing constitutes as part of the construction industry. So at the top of the list, we usually have a client. And then depending how big or small the project goes, the client will engage one or all of the people in the second level. So you've got an external project manager, and so the external project manager, from my understanding, are people that could come from an engineering background, they could come from a commerce background, they can just do like risk or whatever it is. But the external project manager manages the project in a holistic method. So they're not technical, they won't go down into the nitty-gritty of things, but they'll make sure that the building, they'll take information from the client on how they want the building built, and then they'll make sure that the builder, the consultant, the architects, the contractors and everyone are delivering to what the client wants the building to look like at the end of the day. The client could engage the builder. That's pretty self-explanatory. The builder is the person who does the actual building. Then we've got the consultant, which is where I sit and where a lot of the people who are speaking tonight also sit. So as a consultant, we do a lot of cross liaison between understanding things from the client, talking and organizing things with the external project manager, with the builder, with the architect. And we also feed downstream as well a lot. So dealing with contractors and suppliers on, you know, whether their product meets the design that we're trying to go towards, whether their product is available, understanding limitations in the technology that we have, maybe working with them to create new technologies for a very specific end use. So we're sort of like right in the middle of things. And then we also have the architects. So the architects is the person with the vision on how the building looks at the end. They sell the vision to the client. And as consultants, we need to make sure that the architects' ideas come to realization. So that's sort of the middle tier between the client. And then we've got the contractors and the suppliers who will do a lot of the finalization of the design. And they'll be there for when the building actually gets built. They'll install certain components and they'll make sure that it runs, and they'll hand it over at the end of the day to the client as a finished building. So that's sort of what, from what I understand, is the typical structure in construction. So hopefully that made sense to you all. If it didn't, I'm sorry. And I'm happy to take questions about this in the QA after. So as a consultant, what do we really do? What does our day look like? Probably as uni students, as most of you are, or people that are engineers, we start off the day with copious amounts of coffee. And I really mean copious amounts. I'm pretty sure ever since uni days, we've managed to walk a fine line between you know, getting stuff done to a deadline and pushing things as late as we can before the deadline. And so more often than not, it causes a lot of late nights. Well, trust me, as a consultant, I definitely sometimes do late nights. So coffee is a great starter for me, and I can say that for a lot of my colleagues as well. And then after that, we do a lot of emailing. We check our emails, and there's so much liaison that happens because of where we sit in that construction chain. We're constantly contacting architects, contacting clients, verifying drawings, talking to suppliers. There's endless emails that come through, and I'm sure, and we had a discussion between a few of the engineers the other day about how we manage our emails because there's that sheer amount of it. So social skills and the willingness to want to communicate with a lot of people is a huge one if that's something you want to do, or if you want to come and join us as a consultant. And so as a mechanical consultant specifically, this is sort of what I look at. So at the very beginning of a project, we'll get a master plan or a conceptual design from the architect on what the building looks like, how they envision it to be. And from that, as mechanical consultants, we'll start breaking those spaces down. We'll start breaking it down into, you know, what spaces are going to be air conditioned, what spaces are going to be exhausted, whether it needs ventilation. Is there anything special in those areas that need special mechanical consideration? I'll go into this topic a little bit later in my slide as well. So we'll take a drawing like that and we'll start breaking it down. And once we've sort of started breaking it all down, what we then do is start our heat load calculations, which forms a large part of like what I do on a day-to-day. So we have this mechanical consultants, mechanical engineers have this really amazing program. It's called CAML. It's probably built in the 1900s and it is so dated. It's from like Microsoft Vista or XP days. It's so old, it's so slow, but it's super reliable. So we start loading in all the information that we've taken from the architect's drawing and taken from what we think is our control strategy for the building in terms of air conditioning, and we'll load it into CAML, and that spits out sort of like how we size our equipment, what type of flow rates we're looking at for air, for water, and conditions like that. So this is early on in the process. Then we start doing a lot of calculations. So we start going, you know, how big is my equipment? Where can it go? How is it going to serve the different areas of buildings? Like where can my physical mechanical ductwork from my air handlers travel across the floor, drop down into the floors below, all that stuff. So Excel spreadsheet is a huge thing for us. And then what we also do is we have to make sure that what we're designing, we can't just do fast and loose. No, we have to design to a standard. So we have two Bibles as mechanical engineers. We have the NCC, or the Building Codes National Construction Code of Australia, which dictates a lot of, you know, fire and smoke control strategies. It dictates how efficient our equipment needs to run. So all of that is found in the NCC. And then on the other half, we have 1668 Australian Standard, and that goes through ventilation and air conditioning in building. So we design to these standards, and we make sure if we're peer reviewing someone else's design, it also adheres to the standard. And then once we've sort of done all of our calculations and everything, this is where it gets really messy. We start plonking everything onto the architectural drawing. So this is where a lot of the magic happens. The mechanical consultants will put what risers they need, what spaces they need. Then the electrical consultant will do the same thing. Then the hydraulic, then the fire, then the, you know, numerous other consultants. They'll all have a say in what happens in the building. So we'll throw those all in and we start coordinating. Once it's coordinated, we go through the design process all over again. Architects will change the floor plan, we will redo our recalculations, and then we renegotiate spaces with the various parties. So that is, in a nutshell, what I do as a consultant. Word of advice for those that are still in uni: what did I learn in uni that really helped me in my day-to-day? And that's psychometric charts. I'm really bad at explaining about psychometrics, so if you're non-mechanical engineering, it's probably going to be super boring. But for those that do mechanical at uni, psychometrics is a huge part of what I do. I probably use this chart once a week or twice a week. It's so useful. And now I'm just going to go through this really quickly because I think I've exceeded my 10 minutes. But cool things, or why I'm in consulting and why I like doing consulting, is because of the cool things. The cool things are working on really amazing buildings. For example, this building here is the Walsh Bay Precinct. It's a heritage listed building. It's got all these rules and regulations about not breaking it down, not changing the facade. You know, we've got leaky spaces everywhere, but we have to design something that, you know, is air conditioned, is acoustically treated, because there's dance theaters in there, there's theater productions in there. So cool buildings like that. We've got hospital jobs. Honestly, I love hospital jobs because they're not your standard commercial tower. You're not just controlling everything to the same temperature. You're doing so many different things with it. And as a mechanical engineer, you deal with, you know, medical gas, you deal with pressure control. So it's very different from a standard building. But I love everything to do with buildings and isolation rooms. I'm not going to go into that because I'm cognizant of time, but isolation rooms are cool. And so are operating theaters, because the pressure control on those things are so different to what I usually deal with. And just to end it, word of advice, if I had to be ready to tell myself something 10 years ago or 5 years ago, is be ready to learn, and learn a lot, because nothing in uni is going to prepare you for what you're going to do when you come out into the industry. But you have to have the ability and the readiness to learn. And that's, you know, we're all learning every day. So I think that's a big one. I hope I didn't bore you guys all. I'm going to stop sharing now. Thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot, Kelly, for sharing your experiences, providing a context of how building services engineer fits in the overall um, building industry or overall development industry, and also for showing us the cool projects you've worked on. Our next speaker is Michael Seal, and he's a hydraulic engineer from Lucid Consulting Australia.
Hey everyone, thank you. I'll just share my screen also. Can everyone see that okay? Excellent. I'll kick it off. Thank you, Kelly. That was a great presentation. Go easy on the coffee. I max mine at 2 a day, so no more after lunch, but yeah, I'll keep that in mind next time I'm pulling a late one. But thank you, CIBSE, for putting this event on. I think this is a great initiative by CIBSE to branch out to universities and people who are interested in getting into building services and the like. I've never actually done anything like this before, and this is something new for me as well. So exciting and glad to be a part of it all. So quick intro, my name's Michael Seal. I work for Lucid Consulting. I've been there for almost a year and a half now, I believe. Yeah, something like that. And yes, so I'll move straight into a little bit about me and my pathway into engineering in general. I started off as a welder, actually, welding for 15 years, which is something a little bit different pathway to a lot of engineers these days. So I spent 15 years doing that and got a little bit bored and got, decided I needed a challenge, and I wanted to do something different. And I found myself undertaking an engineering degree with UTS. And that's opened up a lot of doors for me, which has been great. I've done 2 internships or job placements through UTS. One was with an earth moving company. That was different. Sort of, it's kind of like being out in the tools, but not so much, and coordinating earth moving equipment and gear and moving large amounts of soil and all that sort of stuff. So that was very different, and it was good to experience that side of engineering in the construction. And then for my second internship, I definitely wanted to experience consulting and see what that was all about. It was something that was always interesting, and to me, from taking on engineering in the beginning, I always kind of saw myself as possibly a consultant. So why consulting and building services engineering? Well, I guess for me, when you're walking into a building, especially a modern building and modern day engineering, it's less about, today it's more about the experience and the feeling that you get when you walk in and out of a building, and how it talks with the patrons and things like that. So how we interact with the building now is changed, and it's evolved over the years, in comparison to how things used to be, where engineering and buildings were very rigid, and there wasn't a lot of interaction and experience. And maybe there was, but I think more recently we've really taken that to the next level, and you get my point. I'll move on. So I thought I'd bring I did a civil engineering degree, or I'm still finishing it actually, and I thought I'd tell you guys and girls how a civil engineering degree in building services may be relevant, some tangents there. So some of the relevant subjects would be fluid mechanics, hydraulics and hydrology. There are a lot of aspects of the fundamentals of fluid mechanics that apply to your daily calculations and some of the things that we're doing there. Also, something interesting that I didn't really consider whilst working in hydraulic services is the interaction with some of the structural members within a building. If you have pipe penetrations through some structural columns and beams, and how that all affects, and the coordination between a structural engineer on the project when we're putting in our hydraulic services, our hot and cold water reticulation and sewer and natural gas pipelines and the like. So that was an interesting one for me. You know, when we do our concrete design and timber and steel design at university, you know, you think, okay, I'm going to end up in a particular niche and I won't need to look at this stuff, but it's all relative, I guess, and that's something that you know, popped out for me, that it's interesting. You need to know the fundamentals behind some of the structural components of a building. University, I guess, it taught me how to problem solve, and as Kelly touched on earlier, you will always be learning and problem solving. There'll always be a new challenge, and you know, that's something that you guys will need to prepare to do for, you know, the rest of your careers, and you know, to not stop learning. And I guess the other thing university taught me as well a little bit was the management of time. We have our deadlines for projects and assignments and things like that. The real world isn't that much different. We still have our deadlines, still have our projects, but I feel that probably a little bit more collaboration with the teams and things like that to make the dream work. I guess the teamwork to make the dream work, as they say. That's what an old boss of mine used to say. No. So what does a hydraulic engineer actually do? I've just rabbited on and really just haven't said a lot. I will say that a consultant we are the experts, right? We are the ones that a client comes to see to, you know, they want to build a particular building in a particular way, and we are the experts. We are the ones that try to make that dream happen for them, and you know, and we try and make it work. And we don't just deal with the clients; we deal with contractors. This is stuff that Kelly touched on as well. We deal with contractors, clients. We're kind of like the middle person in the transaction, and you know, we're the third party that mitigates risk and anything that may arise throughout the project if there wasn't someone who had expert knowledge on these topics. So that's kind of our place in the building cycle. Some of the components that we design in a building, we look at sewer systems and trade waste systems. So your sewer, obviously, from your water closets or your toilets, your basins, and the like. And your trade waste systems are generally for specialised applications like commercial kitchens or labs and the like. An interesting project I worked on recently for our office in the Northern Territory was a molecular lab, and in the molecular lab they were discharging various chemicals to sewer waste, and some of them at high temperatures. So we had to go through a process with the water where it had to be diluted and cooled before it could discharge to the authority main. These are things that we need to think about. You can't discharge it at at high temperatures and with various chemicals or particles in there. So these are things we think about and our impact on the environment. So your sewer, natural gas design, hot, cold water reticulation. We also look at stormwater and stormwater harvesting, converting stormwater harvesting back into the building. So we're conscious about our water usage. We can use the harvested water to flush toilets and urinals and things that and irrigation systems and the like, so that we're not always drawing on a water supply, which, living in a country like Australia, we go through some really dry climates and droughts, so it's something we need to think about. So and that's, you could go into a lot of detail about it. You're disinfecting equipment and things like that to bring water back into a building. But I'm happy to answer any of those questions later if you guys are interested in that. I guess another big component of the hydraulic industry is the CAD and 3D modeling using at Lusa we use AutoCAD and Revit. I guess Revit's the up and coming, coming through. It's a very strong tool to show a client, a contractor, and even ourselves how the building services are interacting with one another, and you can navigate the building services and see where they're penetrating, they're going through, where they're possibly clashing, and it's it saves a lot of time and money down the track if we get things wrong. And it's also a great way to show the client the progress of a project and what it may look like, you know, as a finished product before we even put the shovel in the ground. So that was another one I'd throw in there. My presentation wasn't as detailed as Kelly's, just due to the time, but I've got my my details here. Are they popping up? That's me. That's my email address there. Look, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take some now if they're popping up on the screen. Okay. I don't see any questions there, but look, you guys are welcome to fire me any questions. If you're a little shy, don't want to say anything now, or you think about it later, yeah, fire away. I'm happy to talk about hydraulic services all day, and building services in general. So I hope you guys got a little bit from that, and you know, possibly look forward to working with you, alongside you in the future. That's it for me.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Thanks for sharing your path from your experience in the construction industry to consultancy, and the different recommendations you gave on which subjects and skills are relevant to your career now. For our next speaker, we have Melanie Finch, who is a mechanical engineer at Norman Disney & Young.
Hi, everybody. I will share my screen with you. I hope everyone's not too hungry yet and still has a bit of attention left. Hopefully I can make it worth your while, as the others have said as well. Can someone let me know if they can see that? I think you probably can now. Okay, yes. Great. All right, thanks a lot. So as Alyssa mentioned, I am a mechanical engineer as well. So Kelly's given a good wrap of what a mechanical engineer does. So I won't focus too much on that. And Michael's introduced you to hydraulic engineering. What I wanted to focus on was finding your niche in the building services industry, and looking at all the options that are available to you in terms of the kind of markets and buildings that you could work on. And then also the disciplines that are available to you too. And those are almost interchangeable regardless of what you study. I think it's quite easy to move between something that you're interested in. So let's have a look at some of those things. So there we go. Firstly, a little bit about me. So I went to UNSW. I studied mechanical engineering and finance. I tried to squeeze in a lot of extracurriculars towards the end of my degree when I discovered that they were a lot of fun. Can't recommend that highly enough. And then ever since then, I've been working at NDY. I landed there by accident as an undergraduate, did an internship there, and I really loved building services. And before that, I had no idea what building services was. So if you're in that boat, really glad that you're here at that webinar. And that's kind of why I've picked this topic as well, just because I feel like it's important to know the breadth of the industry, and it's something that I think isn't well known about amongst students as well. All right, so on the right there is a picture of the city, and that's the kind of buildings that I've been involved in over the past few years. Most of those have actually been probably since 2018 when I started as a full-timer at NDY, and that's just in the CBD. One of the most rewarding parts of this job, I think, is being able to walk around the city or other places where you're involved in buildings and actually be able to see buildings that you've contributed to, or even if they're small improvements, just knowing how that building is working and how you're contributing to people's lives who are using them every day. Okay, so what kind of sectors can you work in as a building services engineer? We already heard about a couple of them today. So Kelly's a big fan of health. You'll see that one up there. That is a really challenging and diverse market sector. You have a lot of others as well. So education, universities, schools even. You've got industrial facilities, warehousing. You've got mission critical. That was a mystery to me when I started in the industry as well. That means data centers, and it's a big booming industry at the moment. You've got civic as well, which at NDY means defence, sporting facilities, kind of everything that doesn't fit nicely into another category. We've just packaged it all up into civic. Offices as well, that's one of the ones that people think of straight away when they think of building services. You're looking at your CBD, your city, but then also your smaller offices around the city fringe areas. Residential and hotels is pretty self-explanatory there. Retail as well, so big shopping centres, and then transport too. So there's still building services involved in port facilities, in tunnels even, and in other infrastructure projects as well. So the reason I put this up is there's a huge range of sectors that you can be involved in, and generally you'll find somewhere that piques your interest. The really good thing about going into building services at kind of most companies is they'll usually work in at least a couple of sectors. And going in as a graduate or an intern, you should be able to get some experience across a couple of sectors. And then even if you don't like one area, you're likely to like another one. So that's our sectors. But then what about your actual services discipline? Oh, and I've got a little smiley face there because I work in offices. And even though some people just think they're all big commercial towers, I love them. Okay, so disciplines. Again, I'm going to keep it office themed. We've got quite a few of them, as you can see there. So at uni, you might be studying mechanical, electrical, maybe renewable, maybe civil, the list goes on. There's as many disciplines in building services as there are degrees in building services related areas. And you can do some switching between them. So for example, someone that studies electrical could also easily become a telecommunications engineer or work in some of the security areas. Someone who studies mechanical can go and do hydraulic engineering or vice versa as well. Fire engineering, that's a really interesting one. That involves a lot of modeling and a lot of kind of sensitivity analysis. Most engineering degrees would be able to move into fire engineering without too much of an issue. Acoustics as well, if you have a mechanical background, easy to go into acoustics. So there's plenty of breadth there. And if one of the core disciplines, so your mechanical, electrical, fire, hydraulic, doesn't necessarily pique your fancy, then there's a lot of specialties available as well. There's a couple of interesting ones in there too. Vertical transportation was one that I wasn't immediately familiar with, but it is quite self-explanatory. It's all your big lifts. It's an area with a fair bit of innovation at the moment. Everyone's trying to build buildings higher with less lifts in them. So you have all sorts of kind of interesting design innovation in that space. And then you've got your controls and building information management as well. So all of the CAD modeling that Michael was talking about before comes into play there, and I'll touch on some other interesting areas of development there in a minute. So those are your kind of market sectors and also your areas that you can go into and specialize in as building services engineer. However, there are a couple of really interesting areas, and these aren't kind of specific to any type of engineering at the moment. They're more kind of trends in the industry that I think are pervasive to all disciplines and all sectors. So I just wanted to point them out as something to watch. And if you are interested in getting in the industry, I think it would be a really good idea to try and seek resources and webinars and look into these areas, because that's really where a lot of innovation is happening. Number one, sustainability. So talk of the town in general, I think, not just in building services, but it is really across the industry in a big way at the moment. It has been for a little while, but there's a lot of traction. So I've just picked up a few articles and snapshots here of what some of the big property groups and government are doing around sustainability in the industry at the moment. So it's a really big push. Firstly, the government's pushing everybody to, at a minimum, meet better minimum standards to get their buildings rated in certain ways. So there's a neighbours rating scheme, which isn't necessarily government related, that a lot of building owners try to get so that they can get better tenants into their buildings and actually attract higher rent rates. So the neighbours ratings continue to increase all the time. There's more pressures on building owners to have more efficient buildings. And it's really nice to see the industry kind of pushing itself to meet better and better targets all the time. So that's the neighbours 6-star that you can see over there. There's also a couple of snapshots here from AMP Capital and from Dexus as well, which are 2 major property groups in the city. They own a lot of assets across the city, and they've both announced net zero carbon targets by 2030, and they've also introduced climate resilience measures. So those things are looking at, in the future, when our climate is changing and temperatures are hotter, what are we doing now in our buildings to make sure that the buildings we're building now are going to be able to stand up to the future climate, and just really acknowledging climate change is a real thing. Net zero carbon as well is talking about the grid is eventually getting greener. Let's make sure we're removing fossil fuels from our building and doing everything we can to not only make our building energy efficient, but offset that with green power where possible so that we have a net zero carbon building. And a couple of other interesting ones in there. So Atlassian, you may have seen in the press recently, there's a very impressive new building going up in Sydney, the Atlassian building. Good job to one of Australia's good news stories on the startup and tech front. They're looking at building the world's tallest hybrid timber tower. So that's a very ambitious task, and it is in the sustainability space because timber has a much lower embodied carbon than your standard buildings. And then another net zero energy building there. So sustainability, I would really recommend having a look at some of the trends in the industry if you are looking to get into it. And there are sustainability engineers as well. So if it's something that you're really interested in, happy to take questions on that as well. The other one I want to just quickly get to as well is smart buildings. Again, this is a term that's thrown around a lot. Sometimes it's not a term that's too well understood, but it's really talking about introducing technology into our buildings that makes the user experience for the actual people using those buildings every day more seamless and gives them more utility than they do have now. So on the left there's the Sydney skyscraper built with the world's first AR digital twin tech. So again, that's talking about some of that Revit, AutoCAD computer modeling of buildings, and then actually using that to have a digital copy of the building that building managers and contractors and facilities managers can look at and potentially use for predictive maintenance or for better record keeping and improving the way that they can look after their buildings. Another really interesting one here is the no touch trend. So this building actually organized this project before COVID came through. Very good timing for them. So they've got no touch entryways. So instead of having card readers or needing to press any buttons to get through security, they've got a hand reader, and that hits their security targets. And also means that it's touchless to get in. So I'm sure we'll be seeing that across a lot more buildings in the future. So that was kind of it from me. Hopefully that leaves you with a bit of an understanding of potential options where you can find your niche in building services and some areas to keep an eye on and maybe try to align yourself with where there's a lot of movement and innovation. So I'll pass off now, but yes, if you have any questions, please put them in the question box and we can have a chat about it at the end. Thanks everyone.
Thanks a lot, Melanie. Thank you for providing light on the different opportunities in the building services engineering space, and also for providing the current trends in the industry. I just wanted to remind everyone that we have this fantastic webinar coming up on 2020 Vision for 2030 Reality. So again, CIBSE will be offering free tickets to CIBSE student members. So don't forget to sign up for it. Our next speaker is Baoying Tong, who is an electrical engineer at AECOM.
Ooh, thanks, Elisa. Let me just share my screen.
Thanks, Baoying.
There we go. Cool, can I see it?
Mhm.
Yep. Cool. All right. It's a great honor to be here and talk about building services. And I guess so far we had three really excellent speakers. Kelly and Michael talked about their individual disciplines, and Mel sort of touched base on the general building services disciplines and also the interesting trend that's going to happen in the industry. And for me, I'm an electrical engineer, but I wouldn't talk about electrical engineering today. What I want to talk about is actually from high level. I want to talk about where kind of building services leads you in regards to your career. A little bit about myself. So yeah, I'm Baoying. I work for the global engineering firm Ecom since 2016, and I'm a chartered electrical engineer. So I'll start talking about career from my first project. For those ones who also graduated from Sydney University, you can actually see that this is the Great Hall of Sydney University, and that was actually built back in, I think, 1850s, which means it is probably the most significant building in the whole Sydney or in Australia. I was very fortunate to get involved in this project as one of my first projects. So I was a student lighting engineer and working with consultants, with architects, and also with the uni to deliver a new lighting system for this venue. It was really impressive, and really enjoyed the experience. So when I finished my uni, I actually had to make a choice. I have two career paths in front of me. One is about consulting, and the other one is about on the supplier side. And the reason is because of my experience with the Great Hall Lighting project. I feel I really like the LED technology. It looks pretty good. So I was thinking, oh, should I take a career path as a consultant, or should I do a lighting supplier? And in the end, I realized, yeah, I really love to talk with people, and probably I'm not that much into research. That's why I took the role with Stinson Warming, which is a local consultant in Sydney. So that's the first choice I made, and from there, I worked with Stinson Warming for 6 months until my contract ended, and then I got the job with Ecom as a graduate, and that was back in 2016. So now, I guess, looking back at what I have experienced, and if you ask me, do I prefer a small firm or big company? Probably I would say, yeah, as long as you are learning, then it doesn't matter. Either you start with a small one or with a big one. For me, working in a small firm is definitely fun. Actually, when I was working with Stinson Warming, I actually worked on many signature projects, and the team there, they are really good. It's more like a family. And as an electrical engineer working in a small firm, you actually get a chance to not only learn about electrical engineering design, but also the chance for you to learn things like drafting, like for example, vertical transportation, dry fire, other things. And when I joined Ecom, I find there's a difference. In Ecom, the team is much bigger. So not only we just have building services, but also we have transports, we have renewables, we have power, a lot of different teams. We have about 300-400 people in our George Street office. And for me, I don't need to do things like drafting or other disciplines anymore. I can just focus on electrical, and I can work on big projects, for example, like the new Sydney fish market. But either way, as I said, as long as it is a reputable company, you have a good team, and also most importantly, you are learning. Then it doesn't matter if you start with a small firm or big company. And after a couple of years with a bit of experience, another choice I had to make is actually which chartership I want to take. And there are for building services engineers, there are two types. One is CEng, which is with CIBSE, and the other is CPEng, which is with Engineers Australia. And probably sounds disappointing. I actually chose my chartership with Engineers Australia. And I guess now looking back, I can see there's definitely each system has its own advantage. For CIBSE is definitely it's widely recognized in the whole world, which if you are chasing after a global career, it's going to help you. Whereas for CPEng, in Australia, it is more straightforward. And also you can choose which aspect you want to take the chartership, either in, for example, for me, it's either in electrical engineering, obviously in building services engineering. And my last slide is actually about, I guess, one decision I'm pretty sure I'm going to be facing in the next few years. It's actually, do I want to stick with a technical role, or do I want to do something related with business? And I guess taking AECOM as an example, once you join AECOM as an engineer, you started with a graduate and then gradually moving up, professional, got senior, and after that, we call it a principal. I know some companies call it associate, and then we reach to director level. If you want to choose a technical role, whereas there's always opportunities actually for you to grow your business side skills, and you can choose, for example, to become a more non-technical project manager, dealing with all disciplines on the project, talking with the client, or you can choose either like say a business management side role, such as people manager, or like say on the more operations side. So I guess like say either you choose the left or choose the right, you're gonna see your values for sure in the consulting industry. And I guess so far what I talk about, I said it's about making your career in consulting. And as you can see, making your career is sort of equivalent to making decisions down the track. And I guess there's really no right or wrong in this journey, because you have to constantly, I guess, know what you want, and also improve your, I call it core skills, such as your communication skills, your technical expertise, things like that. But I guess for me, it's really important that when you make decisions, you make sure that you know why you make the move, and you consider different factors, not just about money. And very importantly, check with your mentors, with your buddies, and see what they think. And once you make a decision, and just go for it. Don't think twice. So that's my presentation on today's topic. And feel free ask me any question on this. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Baoying. Thank you for providing a comparison between big and small firms, and as well as the difference between CPEng and CEng with CIBSE and Engineers Australia. We are wrapping up now. Sorry, I will just reshare my screen. Oh.
I think there was a question for Baoying there from an anonymous attendee. It states, do you recommend people start at bigger companies or small ones?
Yep. Cool. I'll go with this, I guess, first. So wherever it comes from, thanks for this question. I guess it really depends on the job market, and like I said, depends on how many options we have. When I finished my uni, I finished midway 2015, and that was when all the graduate programs sort of all closed. And I was fortunate enough on the job with Stinson Farming. And really, to me, I think it doesn't matter. Like say, probably in the big firms, in a big company, you're gonna see like say different aspects, and then you're gonna work on a lot of big projects. And normally, when big companies take it these days, they normally take many disciplines, not just doing like say one discipline. And that's where you're gonna be able to learn from your colleagues on other disciplines and also coordinations. Whereas in a small firm, as I mentioned, you're gonna have a chance to learn things like in like other, like say for electrical engineer, learn about vertical transportation, like security, like telecoms, all those different things. So I actually find my experience with the small firm actually quite beneficial when I joined the big company. That actually helps me to, I guess, better to be able to see models directly, and to work in models if that's a small job. So that becomes handy. But look, if you get offers from big companies, then definitely also think about it. And actually, it's never a one-way street. It's always two ways. I've seen colleagues, they're working for small firms their whole career and then join the big company, and also see colleagues going from big companies and joining small firms. And once you join the building services industry and gain a bit of experience, what you're going to see is actually it's a pretty small industry, and they're going to have a chance, I'm sure going to have a chance to experience a bit of, I guess, bit on both sides. Thanks.
Thanks, Baoying. We have a few more questions. Melanie, we've got a question for you. How do you think people should get involved in smart buildings?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. It's such a wide-reaching kind of concept that there's a lot of ways you can do it. I think as a student, the best way to start doing that would be to start engaging with organizations like CIBSE and some of the publications that were linked earlier in the webinar, and that link will go up as well, I recall. So you'll be able to access those and find out where those are. You'll often find there's a lot of content around the smart building space. So that's one way that you can start to upskill yourself and start to learn more about what smart buildings needs. In terms of actually turning that into a potential career path, I'd be looking at finding consultancies or firms that are working in the smart building space. So the kind of things you'll be searching for are controls companies. Large consultancies will often have arms that are digital engineering arms, so they'll be doing smart buildings consulting as well. Even some of the big consultancies outside of building services are looking at smart buildings as a concept too. And there's all these new, smaller, almost startup type companies that are looking into smart buildings as well. So one to start looking at would be Bueno, and if you look at them, if you search them, you'll also find another range of companies as well doing similar things in the space of controls and smart buildings and predictive maintenance. So those are some resources to get you started.
Thanks, Melanie.
Can I also jump in here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with Mel that smart building is the trend, that a lot of things happening, and even though, like say, we see there's some companies that may just put in technology for technology's own sake, but still I think, like say, gradually we are approaching that goal. We want our buildings to be smart and eventually connected. Yeah, and definitely I see there's a lot of changes happening in this space, and people are actually saying that in the future, for the future generation of building services engineers, you not only need to have an engineering degree, but also need to have a degree, a bit of knowledge in data science. That's very important, and I'm quite keen to see what happens in the next few years on this.
Thanks, Baoying. Yes, it's a very exciting time. Michael, we have a question for you. What part of your trade background has been the most useful in your work as a hydraulics engineer?
Yeah, great question. So there's nothing like specifically that I could narrow it down to, apart from probably the things that you don't get taught at uni. There's soft skills that you learn, you know, the communication and the face-to-face meetings that you may have with clients and the like, and I guess carrying yourself in a meeting and dealing with particular questions that may arise. I guess one other thing I could mention is when it comes to dealing with some of the contractors, you get some difficult contractors and people who try to, I guess, twist things in their favour and work it around, and sometimes the conversation can be a little bit heated and so on. So I guess coming from a trade background and working with people who are like that, I get it. I guess that's helped me a bit there. I feel pretty comfortable around a contractor or whoever who wants to try and get their own way with my design, and I say no, or you know, we come to a compromise depending on what it is. But yeah, I guess those kind of things, just the soft skills are things that handling yourself in certain situations, something that you don't really get taught, things that you learn from work experience. So yeah, nothing directly related to engineering though, unfortunately.
That's all good. Thanks, Michael. We've got another question for you and Baoying. What has your experience been balancing degree studies with a full-time job in the building services industry?
Cool. And 2 kids.
And 2 kids. Amazing.
Yeah, it's great fun. It's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding at the same time. I'm starting to get a few of my marks back from this semester at uni, and things are looking good, and it's good to see the hard work paying off. I guess what keeps me going is my drive, my interest, and my passion for it. I think if you're not passionate and you don't love what you're doing, you're really not going to push through those really difficult and tough moments when things start getting a bit hard. So, you know, as some of you may be, you know, finishing up at uni or have already finished at uni, you know, I definitely recommend finding something that you're passionate about, you know, and it might take you a little while to work that out. You might not work it out straight away. But once something grabs your interest and you feel like it's something that you might enjoy for the long term, grab it and run with it, and just go all in. That's all I can say. So I love what I do. I love that I found building services personally. I've worked in a trade, worked in construction and earth moving, and for me, I'm happy now. I've found what I enjoy, what I love. So I hope, that, I think if you can do that, you're halfway there. So the rest should follow. No worries.
Cool. I already find working well, also doing study full time is pretty hard. I guess Michael's experience with 2 kids is probably the next level up. So good on you for that. So I guess for me, so I almost one assignment away from completing my degree in management with Sydney University, and it's definitely a lot of fun. Say not only just on the subject, but also on time management is always a challenge. Give you an example. This Monday, I had my last lecture day. I had to get up at 7 a.m., working straight away, finish few meetings, log online at 9, and then keep going until 5, and I finish, go to work on my daily works. But I guess, as Michael said, you really need to be interested in what you're learning. And what I find is actually with a few years of experience, actually what I learned, different subjects, even though they're not engineering anymore, but still I feel like, say, they can apply to what I do, the way I interact with my client and how to manage my projects, and especially dealing with numbers. I'm so glad I did finance and accounting. I think it was a good decision. And I guess other than that, also it's very important to keep a learning mindset. That's very important. Also, first, as consultants, we work on different projects, and our client pay us and expect us to be the expert in everything. And even though, sometimes could be hard, but still we show them that we can quickly understand the situation, learn the knowledge, and give them a solution. That's really important. And doesn't matter if you want to do a degree or not. Still, learning skill is what I find one of the most important skills as a consultant.
Thanks, Baoying. We're a little bit over time, but we have one more question for Melanie. Could you please also talk about the challenges you face in day-to-day client liaison while being a mechanical engineer?
Yeah, sure. That's a really good question, actually. So client liaison is actually one of my favorite parts of the job. It's something that changes all the time, and you really have to tailor it to the client that you're working with at the time. There are a few challenges that I can think are the main ones that we can categorize and call out. One of them is understanding your client. So that means listening more than you're talking, asking the right questions. And sometimes it doesn't mean listening to exactly what they're saying. Sometimes it means trying to understand what's actually behind what they're saying, and really getting to the crux of what they want and their drivers for wanting something a particular way, so that you can address that, and whether or not you're addressing it in the way that they're asking you to address it, or you can think of another way to meet their same need in a more innovative way. If there's some challenges that you're facing, then that's a really important part of the process. If you can get to that level of understanding, then you're going to be in really good stead. Another thing I think is being able to translate pretty complex technical terms and concepts into normal everyday language for anyone to understand, even if they don't have a background in engineering at all, so that they can understand why you're recommending what you're recommending. It's really important to take the client on the journey with you sometimes, especially when you're talking about spending money and budgets and justifying costs and disruption and why maybe something can't look exactly like that, but it needs to look a little bit like this, but it's going to mean that it's going to be a lot more efficient and it's going to fit within your budget. And taking them on that journey of balancing all of the conflicting requirements and the conflicting aspirations for the project. It's really helpful if you can be very clear in translating from technical terms and putting it in a way that they can understand, so they're on the decision-making process with you. Those would be my 2 points.
Thanks a lot. Again, I would like to thank Kelly, Michael, Melanie, and Baoying for sharing your experiences in the building services industry and also the different aspects around it. We are a little bit over time, but if you would like to get in touch with any of the speakers, their email address are shown on the screen. A recording of this webinar will also be available to all of the attendees after this event. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks,
Great,
everybody.
thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Catch you later.
Cheers.